Okay, in the last video, we took a listen to the mix up to the end of the first chorus, and at -4, which is way louder than we'll ever need to be in real life, ever, um, it held up pretty well. I mean, it wasn't 100% perfect, but I didn't expect to get an A plus, 100%. But I could live with that. If a band said we must be the loudest thing ever, then I could render that and say, okay, buddies, there you go. Now, in a real situation, we would turn that down. And what's interesting is all of these processors on the two bus here are set to break at various times. And what I mean by that, in terms of level, our gain structure is set so that the UAD Studio A800 is pushing the threshold of mushing up, but not quite. If we had suddenly, I don't know, added another plug-in and it was way louder, this thing would start to distort. So it's adding something nice. It's pushing itself, but it's doing so in a way that it's not quite over the line. Okay, and the Cambridge is fine. It's just EQing a little bit. Sonoformer, very sensitive as a multiband compressor type thing. It's very sensitive to level changes, and we're only really knocking off like a decibel, maybe 2 in spots. But I mean, it's just barely moving, as you've seen earlier in previous videos. So it's very sensitive to changes, and I got it exactly where I want it. I want it constantly working, but only knocking off a little bit at a time is my general point of view. And I say constantly, maybe not all the time, but always just smoothing out something is usually my perspective with that. Then, now when we get to the brick wall limiter, which luckily this thing has terrible metering, which is what I like. I don't want to know how much damage it's being done. At this point, it's clear to me that if we're the distortion we were hearing when we were at -4 decibels RMS, which is where we're at this point, was most likely caused by this dude. Because these things can only work so hard before they distort internally. That's just the nature of the game. It's more like a physics thing than a quality of the gear. And while not all limiters are created equal, which is something we'll talk about here in another video, we'll do some experiments to find out which ones get us the loudest with minimal distortion. This one is a good one, but they all have limits. You send 1,000,000 decibels into any limiter, it's going to squeal a little bit. So, because I think that everything else has a gain structure that's just about right, I'm going to try to get down to our -6.5 RMS on our TT meter over here, just by pulling this thing down. Okay, so what I could do is actually pull the level down early on in this two-bus chain. I often do that usually more if I'm going to add something, because I want to make life easier on all of these processors. And we could do it that way, but I've put a lot of effort in the gain structure, and I know for sure that I want the maximizer to be not work as hard. It's the guy carrying the brunt of the load, because getting this -4 dB RMS thing is pretty freaking silly, and so it's carrying a load it shouldn't have to. So I'm going to hit play here, and we're going to yank down that level some. Okay, and just to kind of show you the difference, I'm going to put that back up to competition level, and then some, and I'm going to yank the input level down. Do we have a good? Yeah, I don't trust that tape machine input, so let's go ahead and use, Cambridge has a really precise level control. All right, so we'll yank that down 3 decibels so that the whole mix is going to be quite a bit softer, but this means that the tape machine's working less, and Sonoformer's working less. And of course, after all those processes, the maximizer will be working less too. Let's see how that sounds. We could go either way. I kind of like Sonoformer working a little harder, and I like the tape machine working a little bit harder. Those were colored devices on purpose. So let's just yank down the maximizer. Okay, now let's take a listen to this entire mix, at least for the first, up to the first chorus, here at -6, and we'll see if we hear anything nasty. Okay, well, that sounded pretty good, actually. I'm mostly happy with that. The distortion levels are fine. So we hit our goals of moderate mega loudness without any real obvious downsides, in my opinion. Moving on.